Hello, my name is Shauna Bostock and I am the author of Reaching Through Time, Finding My Family's Stories. I'm a Bundjalung woman from northern New South Wales and I am thrilled to be shortlisted for the Mark and Evette Moran Nib Literary Award. My book is about my family history research. I have traced my 4 Aboriginal grandparents' family lines back to the settlement of northern New South Wales. I have situated this Aboriginal family history within the context of Australian and national history so that you get an ongoing, multi-generational, chronological history of Aboriginal people's experience. I've tried very hard to write a balanced view of history, of relations between non-Indigenous people and Aboriginal people. It's a very entangled history. I think that when you read this book, you will close the pages and go, now I understand what they went through. Now I understand what they're talking about. And I think it's going to bring us together. It's a heartwarming book, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, I'm Deborah Conway, and I've written a book called Book of Life, and it's been shortlisted for the Mark and Evette Moran Nib Literary Award. And I'm here to tell you something about it. Book of Life is a memoir detailing stories of growing up in an idiosyncratic Jewish household, of becoming a musician, the very sordid adventures of youth, the at-odds relationships that musicians have with the music industry, of love and becoming a mother, of work, of growing into an adult and understanding how ideology can be as deceptive as it is seductive, and of exploring Jewish identity in the full flowering maturity of a creative life. I hope you enjoy it.
My name's Ryan Cropp. I'm the author of Horne, A Life in the Lucky Country, which has been shortlisted for the Mark and Evette Moran Nib Literary Award. For the uninitiated, Horne was a major public intellectual and the author of a hugely successful book called The Lucky Country, which was published in 1964. I'd read the book before and I was dimly aware of Donald, but it was only while I was studying politics and history at the University of Sydney that I came to appreciate his talents as a writer and a social critic. I was impressed by his big picture outlook, his commitment to making Australia a more interesting and intellectually sophisticated place, and especially just his literary flair as a writer. When I discovered he had this immense archive at the State Library of New South Wales, I thought, wouldn't it be great to use Horne himself as a window onto the great changes Australia experienced throughout the 20th century? So I thought, why not write this book myself? Geoffrey Blainey, great Australian historian, described Donald as a bee, a buzzing bee, always pollinating, sometimes stinging, and then cheerfully just flying away to a different field. As a social critic, he always wanted to see the shape of new things, what was coming next. It sometimes take a figure like Donald to kind of reset the debate and reconfigure its boundaries and make it more relevant to the contemporary world.
I'm Anna Funder, and I'm so excited to be here today to share with you my new book, Wifedom. Just over 7 years ago, I read my way through Orwell and then 6 biographies of him. And I came across 6 letters that had been quite recently discovered from his first wife, Eileen O'Shaughnessy. These letters are wonderful. They span her marriage to Orwell of 9 years. In the first of them, they've been married 6 months. They're living in a decrepit cottage in a village outside of London. And she writes to her best friend, "Dear Nora, I'm sorry it's taken me so long to write to you, but we have quarrelled so continuously and really bitterly since the wedding that I thought I'd just write one letter to everyone once the murder or separation was accomplished." And I read that and I just thought, who are you? I've read all of this stuff about Orwell and I didn't know you were so clever and so hilarious or really anything about. So that sent me on a deep dive, the result of which is Wifedom, which is really the story of her life, the story of the marriage out of which Orwell's work came, and also an examination of women's work today, wifedom today. The book took me into Eileen's life, into her marriage, and then out the other end, looking at the forces that made her invisible and whether they're still at work on women today.
Edenglassie is an Aboriginal love story. It's a story about staying human in the face of colonisation and trying to make a life that's adventurous and rich when everything is collapsing around you.
In a way, Edenglassie began 25 odd years ago when a woman called Sue Abbey sent me a copy of the reminiscences of Tom Petrie, who was a member of the Petrie family, the first free white family in Moreton Bay. He did what no other white man did, which is he set up his pastoral station with the permission of traditional owners.
It's a novel about possibility, it's a novel about love, it's a novel about resistance. It's a story that unearths some of the hidden history of this place, this city that we now call Brisbane, and was home to a very different kind of life.
My name is Dave Witty. My book is called What the Trees See. It's an exploration of the Australian landscape, how it's changed over time, and some of the stories that the trees can tell. For this book, the trees are really the main characters, whether that's individual trees like the Thorpedale tree, which was once the tallest tree in the world, or the Leichhardt tree in Mackay, which is associated with the Australian slave trade and indentured labour being brought over. The really difficult part of researching this book was when Melbourne was in lockdown here and the State Library was closed. And fortunately, I enlisted the help of a student in Sydney who I was able to kind of direct to certain books that I needed to reference, and they were able to send me the relevant pages. And luckily, I could keep my research going during that time. If there's one thing I really hope that readers take away from this book, it is to form a closer relationship with these trees, to observe them, the trees in their neighbourhood, the trees that are around them, to observe the interrelationship of those trees and the animals, insects, birds, and to convey that will also apply to the future, and that a lot can change in a very short amount of time.